dimensions, or the width and height of an image, are simply the number of pixels along an image width or height. Resolution is the amount of detail in an image. It's measured by pixels per inch, or ppi. Naturally, the more pixels per inch, the better your resolution will be. Images with a higher resolution produce better printed images. So first we'll talk about resizing an image. To resize an image in Photoshop, go to Image, Image Size, and this dialog box will open. As you can see, Pixel Dimensions in the top shows the current image size in pixels. In the next section, Document Size, it shows the document size in inches. We can change the pixel measurements to percent, or we can change the document size measurement to percent, inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, picas, or columns. So let's change the image size by reducing the pixels. So let's go ahead and we'll change the width to 600, and you can see that it has automatically adjusted the height of the image to 399 pixels. This is because we have the Constrain Proportions box checked. We'll talk about what that means in just a second, but for now let's press OK. And our image has been resized. We'll zoom in so we can see that a little better. Now let's open up our image size adjustment box again. Below the document size, width, and height, you'll see resolution. Here's where you'll determine how many ppi you want. Remember, the higher the pixels, the better the resolution. And make sure the Scale Styles box is checked for the correct proportions when you resize. To maintain the current height to width ratio, make sure that the Constrain Proportions box is checked, and that's what we talked about earlier. If you don't have this checked, your image might become distorted from stretching or shrinking. So let's look at an example. So here's our image. And as you can see, the current width is 600 and the height is 399. If we uncheck the Constrain Proportions box and then change the width to 200, the height stays the same, and it will not automatically adjust and change to match the width proportionally. So we can click OK, and look what happens. Our image has become stretched out. It doesn't have the same proportions that it originally had. So because of that, Constrain Proportions is something you will almost always use when resizing images, especially for photographs. Now, if you want better results when you resize your image, uncheck the Resample Image box. Resampling involves changing the image's data. You take away from it when you resample an image you've downsized, and you've added to it when you rescale an image you've enlarged. Whenever you resample, the image quality degrades a bit. And this is because when you resize without resampling, you're changing the image's dimensions, but you're not changing the pixel dimensions. If you resize and resample, you're changing both the image and the pixel dimensions. A lot of people find that when they resize and resample, the resized image turns out blurry or distorted. This is because of the change in the pixel dimensions. Now, when you're resizing for print, you may want to have a higher PPI than you would with images that are going to be used only for the web. This is to obtain the best picture quality possible. The more PPI you have, the clearer the image is going to be when you print it. 72 PPI is sufficient for most web uses because most of your images aren't going to be blown up to a larger size. However, if you do choose to resample an image, the pixels will be changed using a process called interpolation, which we discussed briefly in an earlier lesson. The interpolation method you use will help determine the quality of the image after resampling. So let's look at our options here. Bicubic Interpolation looks at the pixel color values surrounding the selection to determine what color to make the new pixels. This produces the highest quality for photographic images. Bilinear Interpolation only uses adjacent pixels. It's faster than bicubic, but it's not as high quality. Nearest Neighbor is faster than either of the other two, but it shouldn't be used for photographic images. However, it's the most effective for images that have large areas that are the same color. Bicubic Smoother is what you can use when you're increasing an image's size. And Bicubic Sharper can be used when reducing an image's size. It helps to retain sharpness and detail, which is often lost when resizing an image. Now let's talk about cropping. Cropping is best for an image if there's a lot of extra space that you don't really want in there. Whenever you crop an image, you're essentially cutting away the outer edges of the image. It's sort of like taking the hole out of a donut, keeping just the hole, and then throwing the rest away. However, when you crop an image, you always crop away a square or a rectangular section. To crop an image, go to the Selection section of the toolbox and click on the Crop tool, which looks like this. Now you can see once we've clicked on that, you have these little marks in the corners of your images. So click on your image, it gives you the grids here, and place your mouse in the left-hand corner of the image. Go ahead and click there and drag, and you'll see that anything to the left of this corner that we're dragging becomes darkened. This means that that portion of the image will be cropped out. You can let go, and you'll see that it darkens out that area. And you can see the inside of the box is lighter than the outside of it. This allows you to better determine how much you want to crop out of the image, as well as see what you'll be keeping. So you can drag the rectangular box across the image until you're happy with the area that will be cropped. So if we wanted to just focus on that flower, we can do that. We can also click and drag that box around if we want to center things differently. And then we can see how our image will be cropped. When you're finished, just double click inside the rectangle, and there you have it. It's cropped down your image to just the area that you selected. And this will be your new image. Keep in mind that the size of your new image will be smaller than the original because Photoshop does not automatically resize an image to match the original after it's cropped. Now you can also use the options bar to crop your image to a certain size. The option bar is right up here. And you can use it to specify the width and height for the cropped area of an image. You can also specify the resolution or PPI. So let's enter some measurements. First, let's click on the Unconstrained box, and that gives you some more options. It shows you this drop-down menu here. We want to use the original ratio when we set the size of the crop. Otherwise, the image may become distorted, as we showed you earlier in this course. However, we could also just select a size, for example, a 1x1 square. So it would show us what that would look like, and we can move and adjust it to be how we want. In this menu, you can also click on Size and Resolution. Here, if you wanted, you can enter a custom size for the cropped area of the image. And you can click OK when you're finished, or if you change your mind, just hit Cancel. You can also determine the color of the shaded area as well as the opacity by clicking the drop-down arrow beside this little gear icon here. If you increase the opacity, the shaded area will become darker, or if you decrease, it will become lighter. So you can play with that until you get a level that you're comfortable with while you're cropping. In addition to adjusting or resizing the image size, you can also adjust the canvas size. The canvas is the full editable area of the image. When you expand the canvas size, you do not resize the image. Instead, you add space around the image. The image size stays the same, but the canvas size gets larger. If you decrease the canvas size, you crop the image. So let's say we have our image here and we decide that we'd like to add some more space around the edge. To adjust the canvas size, go to Image, Canvas Size, and this dialog box will open. Next, you can either enter the dimensions for the canvas using the width and height boxes, or select Relative and specify the amount you want to add or subtract from the current canvas size. In other words, you can add to the height, width, or both. So let's click on Relative, and let's say that we want to add 2 inches to the width. You can select an anchor by clicking a square. This will indicate where to position the existing image on the canvas after it's resized. If we want to add canvas to the right of our image, we'd click the middle arrow on the left, as shown here. And you can see it changes the dots there. Then click OK. And you can see it's added that extra space in our